in South Africa and South African whites. If you remember when this thing hit 2 years ago, it was in coastal areas where second frequency people were. Same thing is happening now. And then they bring it inland and then we get infected. So this is a situation where we got this. Just maintain our, Dr. Elaine Ferguson to teach you, maintain your immune system. We got this. This is absolutely insane. And Stevie Wonder can see what's happening. So I'm just gonna leave that with that. I'm gonna leave it alone because I want you to be able to put it on YouTube.
If you want to go there, you go there, bro.
I'm just gonna do my little lowly presentation, you know. I'm just gonna shut up right now.
No, bro, if your heart's telling you to go there, bro, you go there. I just thought I'd let you know.
But I'm just saying, man, it's like, come on, really?
Come on.
Can you
come
not
on,
see
brother.
this? Fam, come on now.
400 years, same program they're using?
Real talk. Well, I'm gonna be talking about this divide and conquer strategy that they use. It's the go-to, what they have been doing, what they always do. This is what they do. So what I want to do today, beloved, is you asked me a few weeks ago for a topic. I've been researching this concept of Black fragility. I've been researching why is it we are not able to think? Why is it that we're not able to critically think? Why is it that we're not able to sequence science and be able to reverse engineer our way out of this situation? What is it that has happened to us? Because again, nothing's wrong with us. Something happened to us. What actually happened? What is happening psychologically as a result of the trauma? So what I've done is I've mapped out a PowerPoint that and a keynote that I want to show the family so that hopefully you will be able to see yourself in the data as to what has either happened to you or a loved one or someone that you care about, so you can at least give them a formula of how to reverse engineer this situation so that you can turn your brains back on and be able to critically think.
Sounds brilliant to us, brother. And as doctors, as Brother Reverend Shock's getting himself ready, Sister Jarita, we haven't seen your beautiful face this week. I don't know if you're available. I don't know whether you're still there. But you know, we'd always like to hear something from you. Oh, there you are, sis. You've been missing today, man.
There she is.
How are you doing, my queen? Because Reverend Shock knows you, and at times you may come in. Just let the people know what to do if they've got questions, sister.
Hey, everybody.
Your hair's looking beautiful, by the way, sister.
Thank you. Thank you.
You didn't say nothing about my hair. What's this about now? Wait a minute. This is discrimination.
It's looking like a god.
This is Black fragility right here. You're not saying nothing about my damn hair.
You're too much, Reverend. You're too much.
That's it. Well, just wanted to say, evening, everybody. Hope everybody is well. Yes, I have been quiet today, but you know, we're working behind the scenes, always here, always pushing, always moving. Hoping everybody is good. And yeah, I mean, if you've got questions, put them in the chat. If you've got comments, put them in the comments, but I might miss those. So if you've got something directly you want to ask, put it in the Q&A box and I will get that across to Rev Shock. How are you doing, sir? Anyway, long time no see, it feels like.
I know, I'm doing wonderfully well. Thank you so much. I just love you guys to pieces. Let me just make a note here I have to minimize all of the video on the side here. There we go. Now I can go, let's see if I can go full screen here. Is everybody able to see that?
We can see it beautifully, brother.
Okay, brother and sisters and my beloveds. All right, so I'm here in the UK live with Brother Andrew Muhammad on the Hidden Truth. And we're going to be talking about a new concept, a new terminology that's now being put into the zeitgeist of ethnic thought, and that is Black fragility. We know about white fragility, but we're going to be talking about Black fragility today. And so, of course, we're going to start out with our affirmation, our power of protection, and that is, I am one with first frequency. I am one with the first thought idea. I am one with the firstborn people. I am one with the only one. Ashe, and so it is. And so as we move forward, I always give a dedication to the three sisters, the three queens that changed my life, saved my life, and is the foundation of my life. And that is, of course, at the top, the Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman, who says, "You are the thinker who thinks the thought that makes the thing." Lower left-hand corner, Reverend Dr. Helen Carey, and of course, Nana, Reverend Dr. Well, she should be a reverend, but Dr. Frances Cress Wellsfeed. Ashe to our queens. Now, for those of you who might be on here for the first time, you've heard this term, first frequency. What the first frequency of oneness, our ministry, our movement, our mission. What is it? Well, First Frequency of Oneness is a theosophical social science ministry that exclusively teaches Africans and African Americans how to create a spiritual, psychological, and emotional barrier to the second frequency or European hidden signal of racial battle fatigue and racialized domestic terror. We remove the African and the African American from the effects of their false racial identities, which we call third and fourth frequencies. We help the African and the African American overcome their trauma bonding, capture bonding, and Stockholm syndrome to whiteness. Additionally, First Frequency of Oneness, Science, Manifestation, and Prosperity, our ministry is a culturally specific ministry, meaning that it's exclusively for us, by us. So it's got that FUBU all up in it. We specialize in healing and removing the ancestral, historical, and incarnate trauma that is deeply embedded within us. We're going to be talking about that later today. Additionally, we reveal the natural frequency, our first frequency, the original signal of who we are. And as a result of that, this is based on African sacred science versus self-help systems that just raise your self-esteem. We're not concerning about your self-esteem. We're concerned about your self-efficacy, who you be in the world and how you move. We are a teaching ministry, not a preaching ministry. Now, for those of you who don't know who I am the metaphysical Morpheus. Well, what does that mean? It means that I have worked my butt off to move my people forward. I've got a master's degree in metaphysical science and philosophy. I'm currently working on my doctorate. This is a three-part series that Deacon Reverend Billy B. Man Bird did that is on our YouTube that you can go and find out about my story and how I came to be Rev Shock and the Metaphysical Morpheus. I'm the founding minister of the First Frequency of Oneness, Science, Manifestation, and Prosperity Ministry. Shock, by the way, stands for Seeking Higher Omnipotent Conscious or Cosmic Knowledge. I'm also the founder of the Shock Metaphysics Virtual Comedic Wisdom School, which you can go to shockmetaphysics.com and get more information. And so I've been endorsed by some amazing, brilliant scholars and minds, and one of those is of course Dr. Clyde Winters. Let's see if he can talk about what the frequencies are.
Sir, we can't hear this.
Ah, you can't hear it.
No.
Okay.
Did you
Let's
select
see now.
the share sound button?
Let's stop sharing. Now, where do I do that? Can I do that while I'm sharing, or do I need to stop sharing?
No, you're gonna have to stop sharing and then try
all
and share
right.
again.
Well, this is all good stuff here. All right, let's stop sharing. And now let's go back and we're going to reshare.
And then it's the little button in the left corner.
There it is. Share sound.
Yeah,
I see it now.
That's
got it. All right. All right. You just have to tell me a couple of times and then, Rev Shock will get it. He's a little slow today, All right, let's try it again.
Okay,
can you hear
as I
that
said
now?
earlier, it's very important to understand that Reverend Matthews, you've given a theoretical basis that explain why white people under white supremacy has to fight teaching of history. They want us to only study slavery. They only want us to study colonialism. They're afraid of ancient history because ancient history says that we are a first frequency people. And because we're first frequency people, as you've shown. And see, remember when I say theoretical, What I'm talking about is that, remember, you begin with a theory,
Right.
then you confirm the theory, then it becomes a law. In reality, what you're teaching, Reverend Matthews, is a law. But we have to, in a sense, demonstrate that it's not just a theory by showing that history supports your theoretical constructions.
Wow.
You see, there's paradigms. There's paradigms that you have to look at. And so I look at this from a scientific basis.
Yes.
And if you're going to look at history from a scientific basis, you not only have the content of the history, but you have to have a foundation. See? And the foundation is that we're, number one, prisoners. We are, as prisoners, we are subject to various frequencies that's been forced on us as a result of white supremacy and racial warfare. Remember, racial warfare is the key to understanding. You cannot be a Black researcher and not say that Black people exist, that there is a Black race. But you find all these third frequency people trying to run away from that idea that we're Black.
Yes.
Because, see, they don't understand. When you study ancient history, you understand in a sense that ancient history is a checkerboard, the Black and the white. But God was what? God was the great beyond, so God had to be Black.
That's right.
Because we're surrounded by Blackness, but God, in a sense, allowed us to have some light. That's why we live on this planet. But once you leave the planet, everything is Black. We're in the arms of
all
God.
around.
That's right. We're in the arms of God. And so your ideas of frequency allow us to be able to put closing on why they hate us to teach history. Because when you look at frequency, and you know these people were Black at one time, but their experience in the cave made them hate you. Haven't you ever wondered? Haven't you ever wondered why they hate foundational Black Americans? They love Caribbeans. They love Nigerians, Africans, but they don't like foundational Black Americans because we dare to challenge them. Not only do we challenge them, but every time they look at you, they look at your genius. We built this country. They've always told you that you don't have a culture. American culture is our culture. The food they eat.
The only culture.
The music. American culture is our culture. But you have to understand that this is hidden from us because Black people don't understand that their first frequency.
Yes.
See? And because of that first frequency, you have to move them away from the third frequency and definitely from the fourth frequency. And the only way you can move that is by allowing people to know their ancestry. See, remember,
Right. That's right.
our ancestry is African. We have African ancestry, every Black person on earth. But every Black person, may they live in Nigeria, may they live on the Pacific Islands, they have a different heritage. See, my heritage is Mississippi. I know that the Winters brought my great-great-granddaddy to Mississippi. And they became the Winters. But then I know on my mother and my grandmother's side, these were Choctaw. And because they were Choctaw, they came together and they became foundational Black Americans. It's very important to understand that we're the Aboriginal people. Why are we Aboriginal? We're Aboriginal because we're a combination of those Black people who already lived here and our ancestors who were kidnapped from Africa and brought here. See, the so-called colored people.
Yes.
But you have to have a theoretical foundation to understand any paradigm, to understand how to present historiography. And that's where you come in, Reverend Matthews, with the frequencies.
All right, thank you for that, Dr. Clyde Winters. So understand that we are foundational. Wherever Black people are, you are foundational. Black people were there first, Africans were there first. Wherever land you are on, whether you're in the UK, whether you're in Jamaica, whether you're in Africa, whether you're in the United States, Black first, be one first. So we're going to be talking about this concept of what happened. How did we get fractured? What happens when Dr. Wade Nobles talks about this concept of having a shattered consciousness and a fractured identity? It creates a level of fragility that we have that has created this third and fourth frequency situation that we're in, and why we can't critically think. So now when we look at this, I started looking at, there's a book, there's two definitions of Black fragility. One is by the brother who wrote the book, who I'm in contact with, Adrian Carter. He says Black fragility is the lack of accountability on the part of Black people when they are confronted with information about how their behavior negatively impacts the Black family nucleus and Black communities at large. He says this negative impact develops from an attempt to alleviate their internalized racism through their proximity to whiteness and or self-destructive behaviors. Now, for the record, Dr. Ruth Frankenberg says whiteness is a location of structural advantage. In other words, whiteness, after white people were invented as a matter of law between 1664 and 1681, it created the characteristics, traits, and behaviors of whiteness that gave this new designated group a structural advantage. That structural advantage is today what we call scientific racism, institutionalized racism, because it's a structure that gives them a specific advantage. And so my version and definition of Black fragility is Black fragility manifests when Black people are constantly forced to conform, comply, and assimilate to the psychotic second frequency values of whiteness or of structural advantage. And so this is a forced behavior that we're birthed into. And some of us wake up and most of us do not. And even some of us who do wake up, we still have this fragility in our brains because the Black brain breaks. And as a result of that, we need to look at why has it broken? What are the aspects of that? And then how can we restore it? But it comes from our traumas. Remember early on when I came onto this platform, I introduced you to the 4 African and African-American traumas: genetic, decontextualized, vicarious, and ghosting. Let's do a quick review. Genetic trauma or transgenerational trauma is the trauma, and I'm just going, you can read it, but I'm just going to go through my own understanding. The genetic trauma is epigenetics. It's a genetic memory that is transferred. That we talk about the ancestral realm. In order for us to remember or to remember, there has to be a genetic component to that. That genetic component is epigenetics. It's a genetic memory that we have, not only of our enslavement or not only of our pain, but also of our victories. We have a genetic memory of our resilience as well. But sometimes what happens is because we don't know this, it gets conflated and we get confused and we start manifesting this lower level frequency of trauma, of genetic trauma that is transferred from our parents' parents, and so on and so forth. And we come here with it. Another term for it is PTSS, post-traumatic slave syndrome, that Dr. Joy DeGruy spoke about many years ago. Dr. Patricia, the late Dr. Patricia Newton also spoke of this transference of energy, of memory, of our pain and the carnage in which we suffered and went through. When we come here with a certain proclivity of trauma, and then we start to experience new trauma, the racial battle fatigue, the hidden signal that we are dealing with as African people on this planet, surrounded by sick people. As I say, we're not sick people. We're sick from being captured, corralled, and controlled by sick people. When that occurs, trauma then becomes decontextualized, meaning that you don't have a time date or a timestamp as to when the trauma entered into your body, into your nervous system, into your vagus nervous system. And in fact, you wouldn't even know it was trauma because for the most part, when Black people live, we live with a constant state of trauma. So that trauma becomes normal and a natural way of life. So we actually have never known what peace looks like. And we've never really known what a healthy body, a healthy mind is, because we've always been dealing with racialized trauma, racialized terror. And so Reza Maminicum, who's one of our greatest trauma experts, he says, trauma decontextualized in a person, it starts to look like personality. That's just the way the person acts and bees, because it's no longer that person is gone. Now all you see is that trauma body. That trauma body is speaking, thinking, emoting, and causing more trauma. And so when you understand how trauma and why trauma becomes personality, then you can understand drama. Trauma leads to drama. We manifest trauma as drama. This is why we have a proclivity and propensity to like and seek out all of these housewife shows and seeing each other fight, seeing each other debate. Trauma leads to drama, and trauma decontextualized starts to look like personality. And then when those personalities go out into the world, it starts to look like culture. The angry Black man, the angry Black woman is all part of this decontextualized trauma that we're carrying within our bodies.
Sir, I'm going to stop you there. Can I?
Yes, ma'am.
I was waiting for you to pause, but you're on a roll.
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I'm like, this boy's going to take a breath anytime now. There's nothing. I have one question. I probably could have answered it myself, but actually it'd probably be nice to hear from you. Angela's asking, if Black people are the first and foundational people, does this mean that everybody, including the Amu, have African blood running through them?
Yes. Ancestry is African because the Africans that went into the Caucasus Mountain over 100,000, 300 years, depigmented, became depigmented. Their phenotype completely changed, if you will. The African turned in, the nature turned the African, or that group of Africans, inside out and turned them into what I call an anti-African. So this was a product of nature. This was something that was done to this particular group. When they came out, they did not evolve. The rest of the Africans in the world, we continue to evolve. But the Africans that got caught in the ice devolved. So they went back and they became more primitive, and they became more psychotic and psychopathic and sociopathic, because all they could do is try to survive the ice. They're dealing with 250 to 450 below zero temperatures. At that point, you can't think about God. You can't think about your world. You can't look at life. Everything is about the product. It's about the object. It's about survival. And as a result, this group became, they lost their minds, literally, in the ice. So the heritage that Dr. Clyde Winters was speaking of is, you are in the UK, so you might be a part of a particular neighborhood or what have you. That's called your heritage, but your ancestry is always African. You might consider yourself to be a Muslim. That's a heritage, but your African ancestry is who you are, first frequency, and who you be. So you can have multiple heritages, or not multiple, but you can have a heritage, but don't conflate or confuse heritage with ancestry. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. And one more before we continue, because this question is bound to come up. A question about, could you just quickly, very succinctly explain the differences between the frequencies? Because I've seen.
Okay. So first frequency. I come on here assuming everybody knows these things. You know,
no, but we have new people every week, you know. And
I know, and I should do that. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. All right. So first frequency is us, the African, the best of the best. When God, the creator, decided to create human form to replicate and duplicate itself in infinity, it created the African. So we are the first, we are the best, and we have everything we need to be able to solve all of our problems and meet all of our needs and challenges. Second frequency is what I just talked about. Second frequency is that group of Africans that went into the Caucasus region, and after 100,000 years, 44 plus thousand generations, came out anti-African. So they came in second frequency. Their frequency lowered from first to second. because they're anti-African, and anything that doesn't love and like Africa can't be of God, because God is black, God is carbon. We are carbon-based creatures. As a result of that, everything comes before you can have melanin. Carbon must exist. Carbon is the waters of none. It's the primordial waters. It's how we manifest our reality. So if you don't like black, if you don't like African, you can't be of God. You cannot come back into the one and be one with the only one. So that's why you have to create a false religion, Christianity and Catholicism and all these false gods and what I call the white boy on the stick and all of that. So second frequency, when they came out and started to destroy and create a cancer around the world, in this particular neck of the woods we call the United States, there were two things that happened to Black people. One was when we talk about this concept called assimilation, Black people were only given two titles. You're either a Negro, which we call a third frequency, coon, sell out, go along, get along, you know, be the best white valued Negro you can be. But it also was a defense mechanism to protect us from lynching and all of the barbaric things that were happening to us. But then there was another group of Black people, which I fell into, and that was the person who didn't get the education, the person who didn't have money in their family. And that was the fourth frequency, what we call the nigger out here in these streets. And so we look at this dichotomy of first, second, third, and fourth, and we understand that the problem is we can't solve our problems in third and fourth frequencies, right? So we think that, and we're all Black, you know, third frequency is Black, second, fourth frequency is Black, but we're trying to solve our problems, but we can't solve our problems because we're in and living and acting in our trauma, which is predicated on a false racial identity. And so you can't solve the problems. Why is it that we can't get out? Why is it that we're stuck? And this is the genesis of what we're talking about in terms of Black fragility. Hopefully that makes that answers the question, makes sense, that I can move forward.
Thank you.
Yay. Okay, hold on. Let me wait a minute. I gotta turn. Let me see. I gotta take you guys off, minimize that, go back. Okay, so vicarious trauma, secondary trauma is when we are constantly bombarded through social media, through watching our brethren die and be killed by the police, to be brutalized. The sister Katrina, who was on earlier, and we saw this hueless humanoid go at her and call her a race grifter, a race baiter. When we're constantly bombarded by seeing our sisters and our brothers being beaten and berated publicly, that creates vicarious trauma. It triggers something in us, and it re-triggers the genetic trauma and the decontextualized trauma, and it can cause us, as you see on the right hand side of the screen, the symptoms. It can leave us with, you know, with no level of energy. We start to withdraw socially. We become cynical, despair, hopelessness, sleep problems. There's a myriad of things that come from this vicarious trauma of just watching it, not being physically there in the event, but just watching it online, watching it on our phones, hearing about it, reading about it. These are the things that keep this false personality of trauma manifesting. And as a result of that, when genetic trauma, decontextualized trauma, and vicarious trauma all start working seamlessly together, it creates this sense of doom, this ghosting trauma, whereby we start to feel like nothing's going to work out. Something bad is going to always happen. No matter how hard I try, I never get out. It never gets better. And so as a result, we start to shrink our lives, and we start to live in the lower parts of our nature versus the highest first frequency part of our nature. And that's what I'm doing this, why I'm doing this work, is to be able to wake us up, but to be able to see yourself, see some of your family members and brethren in this data, and to see that every Black person on earth has these four traumas manifesting by matter of degree. So we're going to talk about what that means and what we can do about it. Now, those four traumas creates Black fragility, right? So the accumulated shame and trauma produced by second frequency people and environments breaks the Black brain and compartmentalizes the collective trauma, giving birth to a compromised third and fourth frequency person, which is a Negro or the N word, who can no longer critically think or sequence the science to properly address and solve their own problems. Now, there's a book that I recommend everybody gets. It's a little expensive, but it's really it's the book of books if you are really into understanding the clinical aspects of trauma, approaches to psychic trauma. It says in there, memories that could not be processed would be split off, resulting in disassociation, and could be lived through again at a later date. Hence, third and fourth frequencies, false racial identities. Carl Jung says, what we do not understand breaks off and becomes more primitive. So this is what has happened to us. But as a result of being captured, corralled, and controlled by second frequency, there's a part of us that has, as Dr. Noble says, the shattered identity, fractured consciousness. There's a part of us that has broken off and it's become primitive because we don't understand what's happening. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing in the ISIS papers talked about back in the 60s, why did we have music that was talking about what's going on? When we greet somebody, we say, hey, what's up? What's going on? Oh man, I don't know. Ain't nothing going on. What's happening with you? Why are we constantly asking what's happening, what's going on? It's because we don't know what has happened to us. And when you don't know what has happened to you, you become fragile, you become vulnerable. The brain begins to break. There's certain aspects of our consciousness that becomes fractured. And as a result, we start to act in an unnatural way. Someone said that when you are, that is natural when you're in an unnatural environment to act unnaturally. We have never been in a natural environment. As Dr. Clyde Winters said earlier in the introduction, we're on a slave ship called the world because wherever whiteness is, we have become a slave to that whiteness. And so we're not in our natural environment. First frequency is our natural frequency. It's our natural environment, but we need to know how to get to it because most of us never knew that we could get back to our first frequency because our signal has been interrupted. Our original signal has been interrupted with the white boy on the stick, the white boy in the sky, and the white boy on the boat who brought all of this tyranny to Black people worldwide. So now let's get into the nitty gritty of this. Black fragility and the trauma creates the Black fragility. The Black fragility creates and leads to what's known as arrested development. So arrested development, the roots of arrested psychological development are from past traumas or disturbances in childhood, adolescence, or teen family of origin, specifically to problems in the parent-child relationship, also known as vertical transmission, in each childhood developmental stage, and is the reason that some adults act like children emotionally. Now, we know that we have seen this happen, and particularly when we get mad and angry, we participate in cancel culture. All of those are things that children do. They sulk, they cancel when they can't get their way, they pout. There's a myriad of things that we do when we are faced with something that we don't understand. Again, becoming primitive because we don't understand something. And so it moves into the amygdala and the hippocampus, or the section we called the lizard brain that we talked about the last time that I was here, this is where the brain breaks and becomes fragile. And so arrested development is when we're stuck in an emotional level of development. And depending on the timing of the trauma, determines the symptoms of the arrested development. And each stage influences how the latter adult will experience the effects of arrested development psychologically and emotionally. But arrested development leads to what we call a compromised VMPFC. I talked about this before. The ventromedial prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain that is being hijacked and targeted with racial stress and terror. That racial stress and terror that has created the trauma, that's created the Black fragility, that has created the arrested development, this is the part of the brain that is under attack. The ventromedial prefrontal cortex controls and helps reduce the impact of stressful situations. Well, racism is stressful. Being a Black man, being a Black woman is stressful. It's stressful all day, every day, to the point where the stress has become normalized, so we don't even know that we're stressed out. We just feel some kind of way. And so this part of the brain, when that part of the brain becomes compromised, the VMPFC, it moves into what we call cortical shutdown. Now, how many of you have experienced a brain fog and senior moments and your brain just completely freezing, right? You can't think. Immobilization, shutdown, disassociation, frozen is a trauma response built into the nervous system, right? And so when we see Freddie Gray, when we see George Floyd, when we see Ahmaud Arbery, when we see that footage, the brain, we sometimes we can't function. We become so distraught in the trauma responses of fight, flight, freeze, or annihilate. We freeze, we become immobile. And so again, I want you to see how we're moving through this data. Trauma, those 4 traumas creates Black fragility. Black fragility creates fuels arrested development. Arrested development hijacks and compromises the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. When that happens, we then suffer through what's called cortical shutdown. Now, let's take it a step further. What happens what's the next level after cortical shutdown? It challenges emotional intelligence. So we have a low or no emotional intelligence. Now watch this. So emotional intelligence refers to the ability to identify and manage one's own emotions as well as the emotions of others. When you see all of these debate shows on the internet, when you see all of the reality TV shows of everybody arguing, fussing, and fighting, when you see all of this chaos, and when you have a proclivity to want to be a part of it, it's because there's a low level of emotional intelligence, because you're not able to manage the stress of your mind and awareness. As a result, you start to act like a child, arrested development, low emotional intelligence. And so this is fascinating because the ability to harness those emotions and apply them to tasks like thinking and problem solving, right? So what we do is we come to Brother Andrew Muhammad, and with our greatest intentions to solve our problems, but because of the trauma, the compromised VMPFC, cortical shutdown, low EQ, and arrested development, well, we can't process the information that Brother Andrew Muhammad is bringing to us. We hear it, we see it, but there's something in our brains that we can't manifest it, we can't lock in, we can't process it, and so it gets stored as entertainment versus education. Because education, you're supposed to activate, right? So every week that you come on with I'm going to call him Dr. Muhammad, Dr. Andrew Muhammad, every time you come on with this brother, you're supposed to change. You're not supposed to leave the room the same way you entered it every time you come in every Tuesday. But something happens where we just keep going. We're like on a treadmill. We're running to stand still. Why is it that the information and the scholars that he is bringing, that we are not taking that and activating it, but it's somehow getting stored in our brains as entertainment? Well, I took a deeper dive and I looked into this. There's a concept known as NVLD, nonverbal learning disorder. And it's a fascinating thing. It's kind of similar to autism or Asperger's. But people who suffer from nonverbal learning disorders or learning, nonverbal learning disorders, guess what? The last social aware, having issues with social awareness, being able to stay focused, reading social cues, reading comprehension in words, problems for problematics with math, handwriting. But look at the last one: lack of common sense. Lack of common sense. How many of you know someone ain't got a damn ounce of common sense? And how many of us, if we be honest, and I have to be honest with myself, I've done stuff that was nonsensical, didn't make a damn bit of sense, but I couldn't stop. Why? It's because when your brain has been compromised and hijacked by second frequency, when your first frequency signal gets interrupted, this is what you create. You create mental illness when your first frequency signal is interrupted. That's why we're not mentally ill. We're mentally ill from being interrupted by mentally ill people. Hopefully that makes sense, family. So these are the things that we are dealing with in our brains and in our minds as a result of what happens when a foundational African, when their first frequency signal is interrupted due to trauma. These are the behavioral aspects of what is happening to them. Now, so let's look at,
Reverend Shock.
Yes, sir, brother.
Brother, I've got to. Brothers and sisters, are you being fed tonight? This ain't no jokey stuff, man. This brother is feeding. I mean, come on, my scholars. If you're feeling my brother, put down smelly. Put down smelly. No, I'm not joking, Reverend. I'm listening to you, brother. You know, I'm a student now. I'm listening.
I appreciate you, guys. I appreciate you.
Feeding hard food. Hard food. And these days, brother, our minds are made to be so weak and fragile.
Yes.
And you're giving some big, meaty food. Come on,
to understand what is happening to us. This is why we act the way we act. Absolutely. This is why we act the way we act. So when we talk about nonverbal learning disorder, let's look at Condoleezza Rice and what she said. She said on The View, I would like Black kids to be completely empowered. See, these are the things that we have to understand. See, we're saying one thing, but then we say something else within that makes us look like we're quacks. Why is that? It's because this woman is just as traumatized as the rest of us, but she's been more successfully assimilated, domesticated, and colonized. And so her identity is fractured. Her consciousness is compromised. And as a result, she says, but I don't have to make white kids feel bad for being white. Really? Well, that's critical race theory. That is what critical race theory does. So somehow this conversation has gone in the wrong direction. This is what happens to us. Nothing is wrong with us. Something happened to us. And this is a third frequency person, Condi Rice, that we call Condi or Condoleezza. She has been compromised. Don't get angry at her. Don't get mad. Look at what happened to her. When you see someone do this publicly, particularly, something happened to them. And we can call, I think Tariq Nasheed calls them butter biscuits or what have you, and got all of these different terms. But I want you to understand, this is the psychology. This is what's going on. In nonverbal learning disorder, it's hard to self-diagnose yourself. How would you know? Because you think that this is normal. And think about what whiteness has done to us. Whiteness has created Negroes and niggas, third and fourth frequency. And then we divide and conquer each other. And we're just looping, running on a treadmill, standing still, trying to figure out how to get out, quote unquote, the movie title, Get Out. You can't, you don't get out in the lower frequencies. So their job, second frequency, is to keep your original first frequency signal interrupted so you never are able to sequence thought and sequence the science to think your way out. Now, in Hollywood Reporter, Chris Rock mentioned a diagnosis of nonverbal learning disorder. And a friend suggested that he might have had Asperger's. And so he looked into it, and at 55, he realized he too suffers from nonverbal learning disorder, which is hard to catch and is often missed until late adulthood. So look at that as a result of that. Now, Dr. Edwin Nichols, on our program and our platform, he says, how you reason to an answer is logic. Well, if your logic systems And if you're in what we call a dichotomous logic system, the second frequency is a dichotomous logic. They counter themselves. It's a very detrimental and lying state of logic and being. And so hence illogical thinking stems from illogical reasoning, which lowers the emotional intelligence, which creates low levels of comprehension. So let's go into what I call the 3 common coping mechanisms of Black fragility. I really wanted to bring this to you because I want you to see yourself or see somebody you love in this data. So these are behaviors that I've seen in myself, and as a result of working with myself and then bringing that out to the community, I want to share this with you. So one of the coping mechanisms when you are under the constant pressure of trauma is called secondary gain. And secondary gain is defined as the advantage that occurs secondary to a stated or real illness. So transition into the sick role may have some incidental secondary gains for patients. How many of you know people who benefit from their trauma? How many of you know people who benefit from bitching and moaning all the time? How many of you know people who get a benefit of being victimized all the time? They keep going back, doing the same thing over and over again so they can stay in the conversation, so they can keep the attention on them, so that they can manifest some level of feeling like they matter. Remember, when they say Black Lives Matter, our physicist on our show, Ron Spears, he says Black lives don't matter, Black matter lives. Black is the only matter and Black matter lives. But when your signal is interrupted, you have to use the trope Black lives matter. No. Black matter lives. It's first frequency. It's the only frequency. It's the only matter. The only matter is Black, carbon, melanin. That's it. Nothing else. Period. End of story. But signal interruption, there's a secondary gain where you just start to relish in the problem. There's a reason why you love these debates. There's a reason why you love to argue. There's a reason why you love to get up in people's face. There's a reason why you love talking about your trauma and your racialized terror. It's a secondary gain. Sometimes you don't get attention, and as a result of not getting attention, you get attention from being in the problem. You don't want a solution. You want to stay in the problem so that you get attention for the solution, and that's the problem. So that leads to secondary gain. Of course, can lead to addiction, right? I got to numb myself out somehow, whether that's alcohol abuse, drug abuse, it could be sex abuse, it could be debting, it could be a myriad of things that I do that's obsessive and compulsive and maladaptive. And then, as a result of the dirt and the wrong that I may do to someone or to myself, in the name of my trauma, I morally justify it. And that is where moral justification comes in. And it's a process whereby a person who is evaluating a morally questionable act attempts to make it seem and appear right. This is what has been done to us, but because our signal has been interrupted, and our brain is not functioning, our nervous system is not functioning properly, we now are doing what they do. We are acting like our captors. We are acting like our oppressors because of the trauma. So I just wanted you to see yourself in this trilogy of coping mechanisms: secondary gain, addiction, and moral justification. Now, let's take it even further. So not being able to handle the word no, when you are suffering from low EQ and emotions, when your brain has been compromised by second frequency signal. How many of you know people who beg you all the time for something, you say no to them, and they'll literally get hostile? And sometimes even you have to get physical because they can't handle the word no, because it triggers the rejection and abandonment trauma in their bodies. So when another Black person says, people have been saying no to them all their lives, but when a Black person, when a Negro or a third or fourth frequency person says no, to another third or fourth frequency person, they're ready to kill you because they can't see how to handle that level of rejection. Deflecting, procrastinating, avoiding, wasting time in conversation and in life makes you feel like you have to always be right. I got to be right. I don't want to be free. I just want to be right in the argument. So I'm going to be argumentative because I got to be right. There's a competitiveness, a pettiness that comes with this. And this is the seat of cancel culture. We think cancel culture is cute. No, this is the sickness from being captured and corralled by sick people. So imagine what happens when your kids get the flu, you get the flu. When your children, whatever you are in proximity to, whatever you are surrounded by, whatever your environment is, your environment also is known as axiology. Whatever that axiology is, that's what you become. They say you become the people that you are surrounded by. What are we surrounded by? We're surrounded by trauma. We're surrounded by whiteness. We're surrounded by terror. The reason that we have to have what we call a black room, the reason that we have to have first frequency is so we have a place where we can restore. When you don't know that you have a place to restore your neuromelanin, when you don't know that you can go into the black room, when you go back to the waters of none, when you don't know your first frequency, you're spinning out of control. You cannot solve your own problems. And so at some point, this is why people just completely blow out, have nervous breakdowns and so on and so forth. As a result, when all of these issues start to converge, we produce, or remember we talked about arrested development, we produce the man child and the woman child, right? And so the man child is one begging, sulking, being annoying, pleading, justifying, over-explaining something, making a statement as a question because you don't want to ask a question to feel weak. So you'll say things like, I remember this guy that I used to hang out with, and he would see something on my desk, and rather than just ask me, what is that? He would just look on my desk and just point. He couldn't even speak or emote because he didn't want to ask a question, because asking a question made him feel weak and made him feel less than to another black man. This is the sickness that happens with us. It creates what we're going to look at later called the Dunning-Kruger effect bias, where we feel safe and comfortable not knowing something, but we don't want anybody not to know that we don't know, so we act like we know what the hell we're talking about, when in actuality we do not. The woman child, you don't listen to me, you never hear me, so that triggers rejection and abandonment. Take out the garbage, I'll do it later. Oh, you're not going to do it now. Oh, you're not listening to me, you don't love me, you don't honor me. These are the aspects of what happens in male-female relationships when the brains are compromised. Both of the brains and nervous systems are compromised. And so you might see the silent treatment manifest. You might see the threat of not getting any sex or loving and manipulation. You'll see all of these are the aspects of arrested development, cortical shutdown, compromised ventromedial prefrontal cortex, nonverbal learning disorder. All of this is what we do to each other. And it's amazing that we're able to wake up every day, because you will not be able to solve any problems in this situation. And that's why I'm bringing it out and putting and airing our dirty laundry, if you will, so that you can see yourself in the data. Nothing's wrong with you. This is what happened to you. Now watch this. How many people you know that like to jump in your face to make a point, right? And they start to over talk you and interrupt you and under talk or over talk. They raise their voice, they start yelling and screaming and shouting because they want to be seen, they want to be heard, because that rejection and abandonment trauma is being triggered. They start rocking back and forth, twitching and shaking. Guess what? Twerking, this is from Dr. Clyde Winters. Did you know that twerking is a sign of submission in monkeys and apes, right? So when we look at the culture and why we do certain things are unconscious, but we're looking at, we are being submissive when we are out here twerking and jerking. It is a sign of submission, and this is why they continue.
Reverend Shock. please just hold your point there, please, brother. Can you
Okay.
come off? Can you come off share screen? Because
Come off share screen. Okay, hold on a second.
please, brother. It's just for 2 minutes.
Okay, there we go.
I'm not gonna stop your flow. I'm trying to show you, brother, and I want to show the audience right now what you're talking about, brother, because I had this lined up for you already, and look what you've gone and done. Brothers and sisters, listen to what our brother just said. And we being in the UK, this was on Channel 4. And remember, brother, what you've just said, and look who's in the... Oh, child, I'm not going to say nothing, brother. Just watch this, brother. I'm just trying to show how on time you are, brother. All right, just watch this, brother. Remember all what you've just been teaching us.
Sure.
Channel 4, which is a major broadcasting company in this country.
Wow, I've never seen anything like this in my life. We didn't want to do that in the Ilford Pally.
I just wanted to show you that, brother, because my God, and the white man there, he's a big star in the UK. He was manager of one of the biggest clubs here in the UK and whatever. So I mean, he's a big guest, and you can see his face as he's watching us.
Yeah, and you saw the people in the audience laughing. This is so the Black people that were doing that act. This is what compromised VMPFC, ventromedial prefrontal cortex, trauma, nonverbal learning disorder, arrested development, low emotional intelligence. This is what it looks like. This is how it manifests as culture. Trauma manifests first as personality. Personality goes out into the world and manifests as culture. So this is the culture that we are producing. Now, when you look at that, how can you solve your own problems? You can't solve your problems doing that. And no other culture does that. Now, we'll sit up and say, yeah, well, we like to dance. That's part of our culture. That's part of our nature. Yes, but that is a sign of submission in nature. And why is it that we are submitting unconsciously? It's unconscious submission that we are doing. So I appreciate you sharing that with us, Brother Andrew. If I may continue.
Brother, you go, brother. Go back with your flow, King. But I just wanted to it moved me. It just moved me based on what you've been teaching.
I absolutely can see that. So let's take it even further. So and I know this is shocking to some of the folks that are watching, because we've never had a microscope put on our behavior. We're normally talking about all the stuff that the Amu second frequency are doing. But what we need to do is we need to now look at ourselves and understand what do we need to burn off and move back into our first frequency, so we can start acting like a god and a goddess. And how would a god and a goddess move on this planet? So the cognitive biases that are at play, and when we talk about cognitive biases, we're talking about what's known as critical thinking errors. Critical thinking errors, this is based on the science of decision theory. When we do certain things based upon our compromised VMPFC, our low EQ, arrested development, it creates these critical thinking errors. Dunning-Kruger effect bias, we talked about earlier. Have you ever heard the term, don't assume, because it makes an ass out of you and me? Dunning-Kruger effect bias is when you don't have enough information about a particular topic, but you act as if you know, if you know it, until you are confronted with someone who truly knows the knowledge. I knew a lady who her self-esteem or lack thereof, vacant esteem, was predicated on knowing whatever the topic was that was being discussed. And she was, you know, the big mama in the neighborhood until somebody came along and corrected her. And it created an argument. It creates dissonance, because how many of you get a little bit of information or know somebody who gets a little bit of information and then goes out and starts launching YouTube channels and saying they're experts in this and experts in that? This is the reason why I don't allow people to call me Dr. Shock yet, because I haven't received my doctorate yet. I'm writing my dissertation, but this is a process. And I don't want to be that Dunning-Kruger effect dude where everybody starts calling me a doctor, and I'm not a doctor yet, even though I understand that that's just a term and what have you. But it's very easy to get caught up. And I always tell the community, hold me accountable. Don't believe a word that I'm saying. Here are the links. Go look up. Here's the research. Check it, fact check it. The reason that we rock with Dr. Clyde Winters and installed him as our elder in our ministry is because, as he calls it, he's a falsificationist. He's the guy that goes out and does the research and data to make sure that the information is so sound it can't be falsified. So this is what we're trying to do. And so Dunning-Kruger effect bias happens when you don't know what you're talking about, when you don't have all of the information, you're completely clueless, but you don't want to lose face. So you act as if you know what you're doing, and it eventually comes and smacks you in the butt. This is also moves us into what we call the desirability effect bias, where we start to want, we kind of see the world like we see the world. Well, if I see the world this way, why doesn't everybody see the world the way I see it? Because you have this desirability consciousness and bias. And as a result, when somebody or something comes along that doesn't fit within how you see the world, then you're starting to feel some kind of way. That moves us into another bias called not invented here bias. Now, not invented here bias is fascinating as a cognitive bias, because how many of you know people who might be angry and reject something just because they didn't think about it? They didn't think of it first. It wasn't their original idea, so they completely discount it. Now, we know that we've seen this from second frequency people, but we do this to each other now. This is how we counsel each other, right? Oh, I didn't think about first frequency and the four trauma, so I ain't gonna mess with Rev Shock. I don't care about Rev Shock and what he talked about, because I didn't invent it. I didn't think about it, and I didn't. This is what we do. I've had people tell me they don't rock with Baba Kaba because of certain things that he said and didn't say, and this, that, and the other, because they didn't think it up, they didn't invent it, right? There are people right now that are angry and jealous of Brother Andrew Muhammad because he thought it up. He created an academy. He did it. He did what people all around the world might think they want to do, but they don't do, but they didn't think it up. So they're going to discount him and say, oh, he ain't all that, you know, because he thought it up. As a result of this, there's a confirmation bias that comes with this, where we have a tendency to search and interpret and favor and recall information in a way that confirms and supports our prior held beliefs. So I want you to understand, all of this is what we are doing. Normally, I talk about second frequency. Now I'm talking about us, how we are acting, how we are behaving, and how can we get out if we are acting and behaving based on a signal that's interrupted and there's a level of compromise.
Teach about us. Teach about us.
This is out of love, family, because this is me. The data that you're seeing is me, is my own self-analysis. And then after analyzing myself, what do I do about it? How do I correct the behavior? How do I move forward? How do I move as a God? How do I move in Amma? How do I honor truly my ancestors? And how do I start to act and behave differently psychologically? So there's a concept in psychology called leveling and positioning and manipulation. And when you level someone, I noticed this is something that has happened to me, particularly as I was coming up. It's something that I have done to others unconsciously, that I have to publicly apologize for. But leveling and positioning is when we say, oh, that person is different. She or he is special. What's wrong with you? when we start to insult someone so that we can bring the other person down so that we can look smarter and we can feel better about ourselves, this is the leveling and positioning that we do. It comes from, you know, the lower level of it is playing the dozens, but think about what happens when we are in a room or in a group, particularly in a group, and the brother or the sister says something, and then somebody else tries to compete and talk over them, one up them, if you will, or try to discount and minimize and marginalize them to the point where they're embarrassed and they don't, and so they start to get put in their place. Well, guess who did that to us? Second Frequency did that to us, particularly in Jim Crow. We weren't allowed to look white people in the eye. We weren't allowed to speak without saying yes sir, no sir. We weren't allowed to laugh publicly. We had to go and put our heads in a barrel to laugh publicly, which is where the term barrel of laughs comes from. This is what has happened to us, family. Ain't nothing wrong with us, but now we are doing it to ourselves. So the slave master treated us a particular way. Now we treat each other in the same way. So attempting to shut people down, our brethren down in conversation, publicly attempting to correct someone's speech or behavior. If somebody doesn't finish a sentence correctly, that you feel it's necessary for you to step in and finish their sentence, or let them know that they didn't do so, rather than pulling them to the side, you publicly humiliate and shame them. Being argumentative, competing. Brother Andrew can relate to this because he's had this happen to him, competing with the speaker. How many of you know, and I'm speaking to all scholars and people who own platforms. How many of us go through the process where we have the audience constantly trying to compete with the expert and and we'll see it in the comments. Oh, I knew this all along. I don't know why this is even up here. This is old information. This is well, no. Who the fuck asked? Pardon my French. Who the fuck asked you? Right? This was done without your permission, right? So you're commenting on someone else's information that they didn't ask you for permission to do so. We'll recommend a book, and then you'll say, well, if I recommend this book, well, now you got to recommend a book better than mine. So you've got to have this competition with the speaker and with the trainer and with the scholar, because in your mind, you don't want to feel less than. You want to feel equal to the speaker, the trainer, the information that's being brought, but yet it's painful because you're in the audience and you're commenting. And so as a result, you want to feel like you're part of it and equal. So what you'll do is sometimes you'll level and position the speakers and the trainers. This is why all of the scholars, and Dr. Winters, Clyde Winters, and I talk about this all the time. I know all of the scholars, and I talk to them all the time, and they level and position each other. So even at the scholarship level, and I'm talking about the best of the best, all the people and the names that you know, the people who've been on this platform, myself included, we sit up and we talk about each other and level and position other scholars. As a result, we have to capture ourselves in this behavior and recognize we are doing the same thing to each other that was done to us. And so playing the dozens and all of this thing, talking about each other behind our backs and doing it in front of each other, where we start to try to level and position each other. This is the sickness. So you ain't all that, you just like me. You see, this is part of what we're doing here, attempting to level and create some level of equality. I can't have, oh God forbid, I can't have Brother Andrew Muhammad get all of this information and get all of this exaltation, and I don't get any. No, so I've got to, say, well, what's wrong with Andrew Muhammad? This is why I make a point to be self-effacing when I come onto these platforms, because part of it is to reduce the friction. I have a tendency to be a very deep cerebral scholar. I have a tendency when I come on to level the playing field. For some, people love that But for others, it can be kind of intimidating. So I'll just, be a little self-effacing and say, who is this bald-headed dude with crooked teeth coming on to the UK doing all of this kind of stuff? So I'll laugh and I'll create a little joke or what have you, just to calm people, because sometimes when you meet a scholar, like when I met Dr. Winters, it's intimidating when you know somebody can out-research you and has done so before you were born. It's intimidating that you can't BS someone because they can see through you. And that's what, Brother Andrew Muhammad has been able to do over the years, which is why he rocks with certain scholars, because the scholars that he rocked with are the scholars that are equal to his consciousness. And as a result, that's what when we bring that information to an audience member, the audience should maintain a level of humility. But sometimes the audience member wants to argue. This is where you get your trolls coming in. Well, Andrew don't know what he's talking about. Dr. Winters don't know what he's talking about. Kaba don't know what he's talking about. Who the hell are you to say anybody doesn't know what they're talking about? Who are you? Oh, I want to debate you, Rev Shock. I want to debate you, Andrew Muhammad. Well, great. Did you go to school with me and did we read the exact same books? Because if we did, then we can debate. But if I've done 2,000 interviews in 30 years, if I've read thousands and thousands and thousands of books, if I've done something that you haven't done, been exposed to something that you haven't been exposed to, how the hell can I debate you? I can't. It's ridiculous. So we've got to stop this BS that we're doing, because this is a divide and conquer strategy that they use against us. We just saw it earlier when they were trying to bring these new viruses to and blame it on Africa. It's divide and conquer strategy. So how can you debate someone if you haven't had the exact same experience as the person you're debating? It's insane. It's stupidity. It's stupidity. But because of the VMPFC, arrested development, man-woman-child syndrome, nonverbal learning disorder, cortical shutdown, low emotional intelligence, you set up and you want to level in position, you want to compete, you want to debate with a scholar. There's a reason why the person is on the platform, has been invited onto the platform. I have told people who've come into my space, if you're truly serious about your scholarship, launch your scholarship, write your book, launch your YouTube channel, get your stuff up there and get it out there. So now you can be part of the conversation. Otherwise, you're always going to be looked at as a troll in somebody else's comment section. Don't do that to yourself. And recognize that when you see it. So you'll see these things where we'll say, people suggesting that, you should be dumb, stupid, and ignorant. I love this one. So somebody said, well, it sounds like you got all the answers. Have you ever heard that before when has somebody ever said that to you? Well, think about when you look at that, when somebody's saying that to you, oh, you think you got all the answers. Well, what am I supposed to have? It's my life. I'm supposed to have answers for my life. That's normal, but it's abnormal to someone who has been so compromised and so out of control. When they see a Black person, a first frequency God in control, it intimidates them. And so then they have to level and position you and bring you down to their lower frequencies and their lower vibrations, attempting to put you in your position of submission. Don't question me, attempting to make you feel guilty, dumb, ostracized because you don't want to do what somebody else is telling you to do. Hey, come on and take this ride with me. Come on, make this quick run with me. No, I don't want to do that. Oh, nigga, what's wrong with you? You all that? You think you all that? Oh, you all brand new now. You see, these are the things that we do to bring each other down into lower frequencies, into lower vibrations, and to a lower standard of life. Then your dumb ass breaks down, gets in the car, and ends up in prison, in jail, part of a RICO case or whatever the hell it is, because you did not take on your first frequency and say no. But again, that person, that lower frequency that you said no to, took it as rejection and abandonment. So now they got to make you do it. I got to guilt you. I got to manipulate you. I got to level in position. Well, if you were a real man, you would do this. If you were a real woman, you would do this. See, that's leveling and positioning and manipulation. because it's supposed to trigger you and say, I'm a man and I'm a woman, I'm this, that, and all. And so then you go out and you do it. And now look at what happens to your life. You have to learn how to not only say no, you have to know how to live it and not give a rat's ass about lower frequency tropes. This is why I'm putting this out here for you, so you can see yourself in the data. You can see when you are getting, when somebody's trying to level you and position you, but also when you may be doing the same thing to someone else. So Black fragility creates Black shame, right? So it's the shame game, right? I don't want to be publicly shamed and humiliated. So I start acting a particular way so nobody will see me. Nobody will call me out, right? I don't want to be called out on my Dunning-Kruger effect bias. Just because I don't know something, I don't want people to know that I don't know. So I'm going to act like I do know. And I'm going to create whatever distractions are necessary to do so. So the shame of being Black in second frequency or 2F societies, the shame of poverty, the shame of academic castration, the shame of Blackness, being anti-Black, the shame of colorism, too light, too dark, the shame of low spiritual and emotional intelligence, shame of limited psychological lexicon or vocabulary, right? So I didn't get a chance to go to school. And you're looking at a guy that dropped out of the 6th grade. Imagine, I was told that I was a functional illiterate. Imagine, Rev Shock, your guy that has a master's degree in metaphysical science, writing a dissertation. I was told that I was an idiot, right? This is what happens when you get leveled in position by your own community. And many of us basically just don't challenge it. And as a result of not challenging low expectations from others, we end up dying with them. Now, when we understand the shame of being hypersexualized, so we've been taught that we're the stud and the hoe. That clip that brother Andrew Muhammad showed when I was talking about twerking, that's the hypersexualized shame that we're dealing with. Look at the brother, he's the stud or the thug, and guess what she is? She's the hoe. So this is what we are doing to each other. But now let's get into the science of this. The epigenetics and source of Black shame is called Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude. So the quantum entanglement of second frequency Schadenfreude. Schaden meaning damage or harm. Freude or Freude meaning joy and pleasure. Schadenfreude is the experience of pleasure, joy, or self-satisfaction that comes from learning of or witnessing the troubles, failures, or humiliation of another. Do you see that? Do you see yourself of what has happened to us when you think of Jim Crow, chattel slavery, when you think of all the television shows, all the commercials, how they make fun of us, all the propaganda? This is Schadenfreude. This is the interruption, the signal interruption that was generically inherited in them that then we became poisoned with. Now we do it to each other. Schadenfreude has been detected in children as young as 24 months and may be an important social emotion establishing inequity aversion. Now, let's go into a deeper understanding of this public shaming and why we get off shaming each other. The Japanese have a saying, the misfortunes of others taste like honey. The French, a diabolical delight in other people's suffering. Hebrew, enjoying other people's catastrophes, is what they call Friedrich Nietzsche says to see others suffer does one good. Now I want you to start looking at why you do what you do. You think that this is normal behavior. It isn't. You think that you're in normal behavior. You are not. You are in trauma. Your trauma has become your personality. Your personality now has moved out and become culture. And this is what it's looking like. At its most extreme, Schadenfreude involves taunting a dead rival by exhuming their corpse and scattering the remains around the village. We know where that comes from. Psychologists found that when the Dutch soccer teams missed a goal, the German fans' smiles appeared more quickly and were broader than when the German team scored a goal themselves. So what does that mean? It means that by proximity of signal interruption from second frequency, we smile more with the failures of our enemies than we do our own successes. So now, if I see another Black man suffering more than me, I feel better about myself. If I go on and I see a Jerry Springer and all of these reality shows, and I see a Maury Povich, and I see a Black man or a Black woman suffering more than me, I feel better, because that, now we're embarrassed to admit it because we don't understand this has become epigenetic, like overwrites the natural proclivity of the gene of the DNA signal and sequence. So this is the epigenetics of what has happened and is happening to us, and why we feel some kind of way when we see somebody hurt in the street, and we feel good about it. So let's
Reverend
get
Shock, Reverend Shock.
Yes, sir.
I,
Yes, sir.
I can't, brother. I've been a student. No, keep your share screen, brother. I've been
Okay.
I've been a student for 30 to 40 years of my life on us as a people. I have never heard of Schadenfreude. I love to learn new things, not just for the sake of learning, not just for the sake of learning, but brother, this information you're dropping tonight, brother, this is so damn beautiful, so damn deep, so damn, no, I'm not even laughing, brother. I'm being very serious, King.
Thank you, sir.
This is
Thank you, King.
really, and I'm praying that I'm not the only one feeling like this. I mean, just for us to understand that term alone, brother, it can break so many internal and external barriers. Teach, my King, teach.
Real talk, real talk. And I appreciate that, beloved, because again, as a metaphysician, my job is to find the cause of all effects. And so I'm looking for the cause. What happened to us? What happened? If I can trace back why and how Africans are the best of the best first frequency, then I should be able to also trace all of these situations that happen to us. Philosophy is the highest of all sciences. Psychology and all the other sciences come under philosophy, because philosophy asks the question, what is, what happened, what if, how did this happen? And so by asking those philosophical questions, you start to go under a scientific quest, which is the psychology of this. So Schadenfreude is extremely important to understand, but where does it come from? What's the genetics? What's the epigenetics? What's the where did this begin? It began in the Dark Ages. It was perfected in the Dark Ages. It was perfected by what we call the children of the ice. Second frequency Schadenfreude comes from being scorned by nature to burn in the sun and to freeze in the ice. To burn in the sun and to freeze in the ice. Dr. A.J. Varma, who was just on our platform Friday, he says the sun tells us who we belong to, who belongs where. The sun teaches us and tells us who belongs where. We belong in the sun. We belong under the constant love and tutelage of Ra memory, the sun. As a result of that, when you are in the ice and come from the ice, this is the original shame. This is why nudity is why they shame the body. This whiteness that they have, this paleness in their skin. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing refers to this as reaction formation. In the Keys to the Color, she says, one of the most important of these defense mechanisms was reaction formation, a response that converts at the psychological level something desired and envied, but wholly unattainable, into something discredited and despised. So a white person can't create a melanated body. He can't give birth. The goddess, the queen mother, the mother goddess, she can produce all different ethnicities. She can produce all colors in the spectrum. But the second frequency female Amu can only produce their own kind. Second frequency has to artificially go and get color in their skin. And if they do, they have to use some type of hybrid oil or lotion or potion so that they don't get skin cancer and burn in the sun whereas we are naturally melanated. So you can kind of begin to see this anti-nature mindset. Why they're anti-nature? Because they're not in alignment with nature, because nature turned them inside out. That nature that turned them inside out made them hate in ways that we had never seen before. Africans had never seen this level of hate. We never saw this level of trauma. That's one of the reasons why we couldn't figure out what happened to us, because we didn't know what happened. And we never saw anything like this before, because it's not something we would ever think about doing. We would never think about taking people, locking them up, raping the children and the young girls and boys under some false religion, and then shipping them off overseas for 3 or 4 months. We would never think about, so we never had this level of trauma. But guess what? In the Dark Ages, they perfected trauma. They perfected shame. So those bodies, once they came out, created the Dark Ages. That's why Game of Thrones is the #1 show in the world, because it speaks to their genetic time on this earth. It speaks to when they mattered, because they didn't matter in nature, because nature turned them inside out. They also have a reaction formation because they don't have a first frequency story. They have a second frequency story. We are born, the African is born as a fact of nature. Everything that comes after that is a freak of nature. Second, third, and fourth are freaks of nature because they're not facts of nature. Africans are facts of nature because we were first. When the creator decided to create us, it created an African, not second frequency, not what we now call a third or fourth frequency. It created the African. It created the most durable, venerable human to ever be able to handle anything that the earth was able to put on them. This is why we are going to overcome this, because we were designed to. So if you think that you're feeling hopeless and helpless, that's the bullshit. That's the lie. You were born to overcome all levels of second frequency vibration. So what happens with Schadenfreude? Schadenfreude today is known as trauma porn. That's what it's called. So in relation to the Black Lives Matter movement, trauma porn is when people share graphic videos, usually of police brutality, on social media. These videos exploit a traumatic experience solely for the purpose of shock value. These videos can be triggering to see and creating vicarious trauma, triggering that again, that cacophony of those 4 traumas. And a constant, easy access sharing can be taxing on the well-being of Black people. And so this form of dehumanization is common. This is the new version of Schadenfreude, family. So when you see white people smiling, I remember, I'll never forget the day Michael Jackson died. The first person that ran to me, he almost broke his ass and tripped and fell down, coming to me to tell me Michael Jackson had died, because he wanted to see my reaction. He wanted to see my pain, my trauma. He wanted to hurt me and harm me, because these people get off on seeing us hurt. And so when we understand this trauma porn, it's been alive forever within this second frequency. This is why they lynched us. This is why they invited friends and family to come and see this lynching. A man was lynched today. We took him and we burned him, and we cut off his hands and his genitals, and we selling souvenirs. This is Schadenfreude. This is inside of us. And until we recognize this, we're going to keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So what are the immediate solutions to counter and to conquer Schadenfreude and this Black shaming that has created Black fragility? First, recognize nothing is wrong with you. Something happened to you. There are 3 levels of intelligence: spiritual intelligence, emotional intelligence, and academic intelligence. We've been taught mostly that we have academic intelligence. We rarely hear about our emotional intelligence. And the concept of spiritual intelligence is almost something we've never heard of before. Well, the first frequency Africans, the people who were on this planet before the conflict, before second frequency showed up, guess what? We mastered our spiritual intelligence. Our spiritual intelligence becoming one with the only one. You see, spiritual intelligence, then when we invoke spiritual intelligence, we increase our emotional intelligence, meaning that the more we move into our first frequency spiritual state, the more we're able to emotionally regulate our emotions, but also solve our problems and think our way out of our situation. Because when our emotional intelligence increases, so does our academic intelligence or our IQ. So then we can start to develop these kinds of tools. So think about what happened here. Because I moved into and I'm in a constant state of spiritual intelligence, I'm able to decode what happened to myself, what happened to us as Black people, which requires a high level of emotional intelligence. And then from that emotional intelligence, I'm able to vocalize, verbalize, and sequence words, put them into a PowerPoint presentation, which shows a level of academic intelligence. This is what we do. This is who we are. But this is how we get back to our original first frequency state. And I also say the only way that I can do this, the only way that we can do this, we have to know and honor our Black room and increase our neuromelanin. This is the only way. This is our safe place. So let me see if, can y'all hear that, or did I turn off the volume?
I know that many people, we people of African descent in particular, we have altars in our house.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good. One step further is, well, what type of room do you have your altar in?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the Black room.
So the Black room is a technology created by Reverend Billy B. Man Bird. And it's a way for Black folk to go back into the waters of none, to have a safe place to remove and inoculate, insulate, and isolate themselves from the lower frequencies of second, third, and fourth. It's your way back home. It's where we, before you can see light, darkness must be there first. The Blackness is always there. It's the sounds of Blackness, if you will. And this is why it's important. In order for us to heal ourselves, we've got to go back into the Black. Third thing we can do, if you are looking for a virtual ministry that teaches you, doesn't preach to you, but teaches you high-level science, we invite you for $1 a month. If you want to do more, you can, but we invite you for a minimum of $1 every 30 days just to come on and be part of our Patreon. And go in there and download all the scholarship that's in there and all the research and all the information and become part of our community, become part of our world, because as Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman taught us, we are the thinkers who think the thought that make the thing. My job as a minister is to administer. It is to make known the unknown, to explain that which cannot be explained, and to free people who have yet to be freed. This is what this ministry and this science is about. We are thinkers. We are going to strategically think our way out of the situation that we're in. But in order to do so, family, we must have full authority and agency of our mind, right? So I can't solve a problem with the same level of thinking that created the problem. So if I'm in third and fourth frequencies, if I'm acting like Condoleezza Rice, or if I'm acting like this nigga out here in these streets, I cannot solve my problems. I can't help myself. Subsequently, I can't help my people. But as first frequency, as a God having a second, third, and fourth frequency experience, now I am able to, as above it, look and be able to solve the problems as below it. So understand, the goal of becoming a part of this community is for us to develop our celestial eye and vision that speaks to and heals the terrestrial plane. So as an extra bonus for you, if we have a free Infinity or Affinity e-course, and you can go to firstfrequency.com and become a part of that and register to that, and it's free, and it just comes out for an entire year of anything and everything First Frequency. Also, if you are musical, you got iTunes, Apple Music, Google Play, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Spotify. Go and check out the Metaphysical Morpheus on iTunes. Nothing is wrong with Black people. Something happened to Black people. There, I will outline it. Sometimes it's nice when you're doing, you know, just work around the house or you're driving or what have you. It's kind of like having that university with you at all times, but you'll be able to take a deep dive into those 4 traumas and understand nothing is wrong with you, but exactly what has happened to you. And so as we close out, of course, what we want you to do is to practice on a daily basis, 7 times a day for 7 days. We want you to repeat simply, I am one with First Frequency. I am one with the first thought idea. I am one with the firstborn people. I am one with the only one. Ashe, and so it is. Thank you, community. Thank you, brother Andrew, for allowing me to be a part of this and to be able to source and serve the community in this amazing manner. Thank you, brother. Thank you, beloved.
Brothers and
Thank you,
sisters,
family.
please don't make me a liar. Do not make me a liar. Please, right now, before we end, show your own love. Show your own love, because, brother, I don't know where, I mean, Chuck, look, God loves this brother. I'm saying it to you straight up and down, man.
I love you back. I
Loves
love
his
you back.
brother, man. Brother, that was surgical what you done tonight.
Thank you.
I had no idea where you was really going to take it, brother. But brother,
Yeah.
that was a scholar's feast.
Thank you,
And,
sir.
you know, as I said earlier, brother, that shopping fraud or whatever, I'm not going to be looking up in
Schadenfreude, yeah.
Schadenfreude.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm
you know, brother,
I'm
as I
gonna make
said
a
before,
PDF and put this in a PowerPoint for the family, a
I
PDF for the family.
love learning
Yeah.
new things, brother. But you see, some people like to learn, but they become intellectual pigs. In other words, they eat, but really none of it's been digested. It just turns into stuff.
Right.
You become academic
right.
idiots, basically.
That's
I'm not
right.
talking
That's
about
right.
that level.
Right.
I'm talking about I love learning new things that I can conceptualize, I can think about, I can evaluate, and then I can use to better myself and my people. And that's what I meant when I said, brother, I never heard of that before.
Wow.
I'm going to study it because that explains so much, brother.
Yes.
And not
Yes.
just that, I mean, where you took it, you made it very personal, but you're academic, very passionate, but at the same time, level-headed. Brothers and sisters, this is Hidden Truth tonight with the king himself. Show that love, man. Let him know blouse and skirts. Let him know cheese and bread. Let him know Bumba Cleat and Bumba Jeet. Let him know Aki and Saltfish in the house tonight.
Oh, my. Oh, that's amazing.
Brother, we bow to you, King. We bow to you.
I appreciate you, beloved.
The platform is still on fire, brothers and sisters. We've still got over 370 odd people. And that's those with laptops, by the way. This is not a full count. And then tomorrow morning, I'll get a count of actually how many altogether on the platform. We're talking about those who are just on laptops. And you've held them throughout the whole night, brother. And please show the love to Brother Reverend Shock. It's been a magnificent night. Absolute magnificent night, brothers and sisters. And Reverend Shock, I don't know how you're going to come on for your next event because you keep putting yourself into trouble because now you're taking it to a place you shouldn't really be taking it to. Now I'm going to upload this.
Where do I go from here? What's next, Rev Stop?
Brothers and sisters, I'm going to try and upload this show tomorrow. And I want to see, is YouTube looking to ban this one? Because this brother kept it within the laws and yet exploded all the laws at the same time, okay? But I don't know. It's Russian roulette. Maybe they're going to let this one through the door because this brother studied the law and he precisely made his presentation to sit within the law, but yet breaking the spirit of the law. Jeez, coming out for our people. Brothers and sisters, as I keep saying to you, this is hidden. You're not going to get this anywhere else. You're not. And as Brother Reverend Shock knows, and he knows that I have spoken to various people. I mean, there are other international guests I get on this platform, but Brother knows sometimes when you meet these brothers behind the scene, or you meet some of these sisters behind the scene, it's not really the reality of what they really say, because, you know, yeah, the book may say something, maybe a few YouTube videos, but when you actually speak to them, you realize it's a bit of a hustle. There's a bit of a hustle going on there, man, and a bit of an ego. But when I meet people like Reverend Shock, you got to understand, I want to again thank Sister Maxine for being that one that introduced us together.
Yes, Queen Mother Maxine.
But when I met people like Brother Reverend Shock
And
Professor Kabar and various others, okay, it's like home. It's like you meet them and there's a few sentences, you know, I can trust this brother. I can trust this sister. It ain't about how big they are globally. It's like I can feel their spirit. I can feel their sincerity. I can feel them self-improving every moment in this conversation. And it's not about trying to outdo each other. It's about love, freedom, justice, and equality. So brothers and sisters, this is what we're talking about tonight. Wasn't tonight magnificent? Are you going to say you did not get fed tonight? Are you going to say, oh, I've heard this before? Because no, you didn't. I'm going to say it again.
I can honestly say you haven't heard this one before.
No, you
and I'm not being arrogant.
So break the ego, brothers and sisters. Reverend Shock was in the house. Black Fragility. He spoke to the third and fourth frequency, which is us. And we have to critically analyze who we are, brothers and sisters. It's been a magnificent night. Please don't forget to go online and support our sister, that Brother Richard. Brother Richard, are you still there today, Brother Richard? If you're still there, Brother Richard, put the link again for our Queen. Put the link down again for our Queen, brother, so that those of you that want to donate finances, please, brothers and sisters, please support the family, and let's see what we can try and do on Hidden Truth to say thank you. And let's do our bit, brothers and sisters. What can we do? So yes, help Sister Nadine, help the family. Let's raise some money up for them today. Let's not forget Sister Katrina French, the founder of and director of Unjust UK, a whole organization dedicated to the justice or the injustice that's been given to our people. Yeah. So Katrina, we want to thank you. And I'm saying to you, brothers and sisters, whilst Reverend Shock was speaking, I done my complaint to Ofcom. So you can see my response. Yeah. I done my complaint to Ofcom, and I know many of you have done your complaint. Please put your complaint in. It doesn't mean that we stop there. We keep moving, but all of us, including myself, we had to do our complaint tonight. Let them see that, hold on a minute, what has happened tonight that now we received over 400, 500, 600 people complaining to us. I've done my complaint, brothers and sisters. So please, let's support the program. Don't forget, next week, we got our doctor this time from the UK, Dr. Keftusa, and he's going to be speaking from Africa to the Caribbean, the triumph of African consciousness. This is what, Dr. Skin. Angela, you're banned next week. And Sister Angela, I want everyone to know, Sister Angela is, she's banned from our show next week. Yeah? Okay. So Dr. Keftusa will be on the show next week. Don't forget on Sunday, I'm going to put the link in right now. So many of you have bought tickets. I can't believe how quick you lot bought tickets. I've just put the link in the chat room again. If you want to get your seat locked down, have a popcorn Friday with us in December, Christmas spirits, yes, I know. Kwanzaa spirits, yes, I know. But a Sunday night, popcorn night, we're going to be breaking down the harder they fall. And I'm not going to finish until I finish. It's not going to be, oh, Andrew, you didn't finish. I'm going to complete it. I call it the unlimited breakdown. unlimited version. Our sister Gloria says she's already got her ticket. Sister Cheryl says, I've got my ticket. So boy, oh boy, fantastic. So don't forget that, brothers and sisters. Don't forget, we thank you so much for your contributions. Help us keep our school going, brothers and sisters, so we don't have to depend on government and local authority. We've got the Black community and we've got the general community saying, we love this work. We love what you're doing for the children. We want to support you. So there's our banking details. It's not into my bank account, brothers and sisters. Don't forget, if you love this show, if you love The Hidden Truth, know that Brother Andrew Muhammad does not get any money from anyone other than yourselves to put this show on. I turned down so much work because I can't do my normal work and run this show at the same time, because I'm going to be making phone calls. I'm going to get the emails out. I'm going to get workshops together. I'm going to connect to my people all over the world to get them onto the show. It takes time. It takes a lot of time, brothers and sisters. So if you'd like to support me to keep this work going, brothers and sisters, please go onto my website, go onto the video page, and you see a donation button. I want to thank that sister a few weeks ago that gave £1,000 to my academy, the Westside Young Leaders Academy. I want to thank the sister. I met her for the very first time at the Ethiopian embassy. I'm not going to mention her name. She wants to keep it quiet, but we thank you. And I want to thank the other sister who donated £500 to Hidden Truth, another £500 to the school, which is £1,000 in total. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank all of you that just donate £5 a month, £10 a month, £20 a month. I thank you, because you don't have to do it. But I don't see that as being a light thank you. I want to thank you from my heart, brothers and sisters, for supporting Brother Andrew Muhammad, Lady Adele, Sister Jarita, Sister China, and the whole team in keeping this show going. We want to thank you so much.
Brother Andrew?
Yes, sir.
Yes, brother. First, I want to say thank you so much to you again for allowing me to come on your platform this evening. I want to thank all of the brothers and sisters who've donated. Brother, we nearly raised £600 this evening.
Oh my God, Richard, say that one more time.
Nearly raised £600, brother. I can't believe it.
In fact, I'm going to stop the share screen. Say that. Turn on your face, man. Stop being so damn shy, man.
It's on, brother.
After you 30 years and now you start turning shy.
Yeah.
Brother, say that again, King.
I just want to say, brothers and sisters, thank you so much for your donation.
Wow.
I've been fed and watered this evening from Reverend Shock and from yourself, brother. But family, thank you so much. On behalf of my family, we want to thank you for the depths of our heart for your donations. Nearly £600. Awesome.
Wow. And I'm telling you more. I'm telling you, brother, after the show finished, more money is going to be coming in there, brother. Don't worry about that, King. We love you, brother.
Yes,
and
I love you too, Black.
We want you to tell the whole of your family that we love them, man.
Yes,
and remember what Richard said, if you can't financially give, what can